All right. Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are. And happy Father's Day for those of you who are celebrating that. I'm not sure if that's just the U.S. or if everyone else has it. Probably just us. But um, yeah, I am going to jump in with part two of this. I was just doing a little warm up here of, I don't know what this is, some kind of lizard, skinny, creepy lizard guy. Just to get the joints moving here. But today the plan is to take this guy that we whipped up in the last stream. If you haven't seen that, you can go and check that out on the channel from last week. And hello. Welcome. So today I want to make a couple tweaks to this guy, but also we're going to do a back view and maybe do some color. And actually, I'm going to get my references going here, so that'll be useful. And then maybe if we have time, we'll get into some 3D, because I know some people wanted to see this kind of go through the whole process of character development, and I think that would be pretty fun. Especially because I haven't done really much 3D on this channel before, but it's been something that I've been doing quite a bit more recently. And it's a nice way to mix things up. I like doing both the 2D and the 3D. Yeah, so I think let's kind of dive right in here. And please do let me know if there are any issues with the audio or video or anything, but it seems like things are coming through good right now. Hey, Sabrina. Nice to see you in the chat here. I know it's been a while. I've been kind of in the dark for a while. Not, I've just been kind of off social media for a bit, so but I yeah, I got kind of the itch to do some live stuff again. And that was really pretty fun last week. I've actually been kind of looking forward to this all week. So, yeah, I am. Oh, that's great. Yeah, working at a game company. Yeah, me too. I've had been working at the same company for a few years now, at Unchained Entertainment. And yeah, not a whole lot else. Been working on some personal projects, taking some classes, trying to get the skills up, and just chipping away at this kind of stuff. So working on my portfolio, all that kind of thing. So yeah, nice to see you. So actually, one thing I wanted to do before we dive into the back view here is I wanted to fix a mistake I made last time, which is the orientation of these feet here. The way I set up the pose, this leg should be forward. It should be in front of the other one, and it looks like it's kind of behind. So that's not the shortcut I want. Photoshop, what are you doing to me here? Yes, of course it randomly changes my shortcuts back to the default because it's Photoshop. And I'm not gonna get into it again this week. If you want to hear my rant on Photoshop, I talked more about it last week, but not really a rant, just kind of, the sentiment that I've been trying to shift away from it for a while. And I just haven't found the time to fully make that move. But yeah, it just does not seem to be an artist focused platform anymore. A lot of the tools just are still pretty bad for a lot of things. So, but anyway, it does the trick for what we need. So I think I'm gonna do that. Push that foot forward. So he's got a little bit more of a three-dimensional stance. We have our perspective is kind of going this way, you know. So we have a little bit. We're not kind of straight on, sort of turned a little bit. So maybe this arm too should be a little bit more chunky, maybe dip a little bit lower. I'll just clean that up a little bit. Hey, Sahiru, how's it going? It is Sunday. Sunday art stream time. I know it's been a while. I would like to start doing this more regularly just because it's, yeah, like I said, last time was really fun for me, and it's just an excuse to actually be working on something that, you know, is interesting and compelling to me. And I don't know where this guy came from. It was kind of like the second thing I did on the stream. I was just going to sketch a bunch of things. I did come up with a really weird, creepy warm-up. Well, this is from today. I like this guy, actually. I'm going to save him for later, but there was some... I may have deleted it. Oh, yeah, this guy. This was my warm-up from last time, and he really creeps me out, so I hid him. But then the second thing I made was this guy here, and I'm pretty... I like how he turned out. And I've got a refs board over here. I've got some random cool stuff on it. This was from another project, but you know, a lot of my ref boards I just kind of save out and I can pull them up when I need to. So I think I have pretty much, you know, everything I need here. There was another one I might try to find. Let's see if I can dig it up. I have not figured out how to open up two PureRef boards from PureRef. I think you have to double click on them both individually. But you can, oh yeah, this is the other one. This one had some kind of orc armor and bone designs on it. So I think this kind of stuff could be good to incorporate, give it a bit more of a humanoid sort of feature. So I've got both these boards. Maybe I'll just keep one of them up in the corner so you guys can see what I'm looking at here. Definitely just mostly focused on the lobster stuff. Let's see, I remember watching your last stream in my first year of college, now in my fourth year. Yeah. It's definitely been three, maybe 4 years. I think I checked the last stream was 3 or 4 years ago. It's crazy, man. Time has really flown by. Yeah, like I, you know, was kind of talking about in my last stream, you know, I just kind of needed to disconnect from things for a while. And I still am, you know, in many ways, kind of disconnected from a lot of things. But, you know, I'm starting to become a little bit more comfortable with just, you know, sharing some of the stuff that I'm working on, and just some of the, I don't know, some creative ideas. And it's nice to, you know, to share that with the world and interact. And I think it's easy to kind of throw everything out at once. It's a much harder process to pick and choose the way you'd like to get engaged with the more positive aspects of the internet and the interconnected consciousness, digital consciousness, which I think for me just kind of became too much, too overwhelming. So I kind of just hit the cancel button on all that. Let's see. What do you think about AI? Our company started to integrate it into the workflow, and I was thinking to learn Blender. But then I think, what's the point if AI is there? Obviously, it's good if you learn. Well, I have, yeah, I have, I think from the start, have considered that to be, I have a pretty strong, uh, um, opposition to it just in my whole body. When I look at any of the products created by AI, um, it's just it makes me physically kind of ill. It's not something I have any interest in using ever. I don't think that's going to change for me. And yeah, I think it's problematic to say the least for a lot of reasons. I think it's a natural progression towards the death of art and creativity, and just kind of horrific. so yeah, on a more, and I you know on a more practical level, it's not something that we are using in our company, really, as far as I know. I mean, I know generally what's going on in our art team because I'm the art lead. So it's not something that I, um, if anyone were using that in their work, I would probably, say do it again, uh, but actually do it. Uh, and I think, you know, sometimes I think, some of our designers may have used it for prototyping some ideas or something. Um, but yeah, no, it's not something I really want to be around, or yeah, or certainly not use myself. So I think if, it's like if the industry is heading in that direction, I will maybe find some other way to put my talents to use. But I think sentiment is kind of changing on it a lot, and I think, the way that artists and creatives reacted to it when it first came out, I think the general public is starting to catch up with that. And it's different for everyone, I guess. Um, but yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, practically speaking, yeah, maybe it's worth pivoting to skills that are, future proof, I guess, in that way. I honestly don't know if anything is. I think if there's any, um, if there is going to continue to be I guess, a creative workforce specifically, it's going to be up to the creatives themselves and the consumers to decide what kind of content they want to be creating and consuming. I don't think that, I mean, yeah, there's an argument to be made that it will never achieve exactly what I know a lot of people who are a bit more uh, optimistic about that aspect of it, that there's just fundamentally, and I agree with that, there's fundamentally something that it can't achieve. But I think to the layman, I don't the layman, to just the general public, maybe it won't make a difference, and they'll just consume whatever is in front of them. So I I don't know, I have no idea. um I don't really pay much attention anymore, and I'm just kind of continuing to do what I enjoy, um, and still getting a paycheck for now. But I don't have any, I don't have any real confidence that, or I don't know. I'm generally pessimistic, but I've learned to detach um, my projections and my expectations for the future a little bit from my day to day. So, um, like I was saying last time, it's like maybe it's hopeless, but that's kind of irrelevant because, this is just what I love to do. So I'm gonna find a way to do it, and if people um, want to pay me for that, then that's great, because then if your creative passions and your income can overlap, that's a really cool thing. And I don't think it's impossible anymore, but it's certainly becoming harder to do that. But yeah, if I had to find some other way to survive, I would just make time for doing this, and keep doing it. But not everyone has uh, that capacity. If you're trying to raise kids or something or whatever, you may just be focused on having employment at whatever, you know, in whatever way you can. So, um, yeah. Let me see here. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's really unclear. I say my perspective is pessimistic because it's just generally how I tend to be. But from a a little bit more of a removed standpoint, I think I really have no idea. It could go in any direction. I think people people surprise me sometimes. Um, you know, and decide. And I think there's just a general sentiment in the game industry and in entertainment generally, where people are just becoming very disenfranchised with these corporate machines and churning out this sort of generic content for the sake of creating content. And there's enough things to see and watch and play. It's like we don't need more of it. We need stories and compelling and relatable narrative and art. And that's really not something that AI can touch. I don't think ever. Um, but whether that translates into people having jobs, I have absolutely no idea. And that's probably the last I'm gonna talk about that for now, because it is a bit of a hot topic and something that I have somewhat more of a tolerance to talk about now. But again, part of the reason why I had to disconnect for a while was because that's the way a lot of the conversation was turning, and I just really didn't. I think I tried to be part of it for a little bit, and then I just felt like completely overwhelmed and was really getting in a bad place. Like I couldn't listen to people talk about it. If anyone brought it up, I had to leave. I just had to tell people not to send me things, um, specific things about even just like news about it, or like different, new technologies. I was just like, I don't want to hear it. Um, so now I can kind of discuss it in a limited way, but I think I'd rather just focus on creating stuff. So, and that's what these streams are about. So with that being said, I haven't really done too much so far, but I'm gonna let's see. What I've done here is I've duplicated this guy, and um, I am going to use that as kind of a template for the back view here. So I'm going to kind of reduce the opacity here, and I may reuse some of this. Actually, let's try this. I'm just going to go in and kind of erase away some of this stuff. Try to start to see, if you kind of squint your eyes a little bit, you may start to see the backside. And we will have to shift some things around a little bit just to get the perspective. But what we really want to start out with is just kind of the general silhouette. And then if I squint just a little bit, I think I can start to kind of see a little bit. The back is going to come out a little bit this way. And then kind of come up here. Yeah, we're going to have to shift shift it a little bit this way. It's funny, you would think it would be kind of a one-to-one silhouette, but it's not, because the perspective changes. So I'm going to have to liquefy a few things around. AI is the funny thing is, people are finding out AI is not actually cheaper, in a lot of ways, and that's kind of the irony. Is and again, I don't really know too much about this. I just see kind of things here and there. I mean, it's not free. You have to pay for all these credits, and if you churn out a bunch of stuff that you can't use, you know, you may end up paying more for it than you would just to hire an artist that can actually understand your vision. But again, I don't really particularly know. I'm pretty kind of tuned out from stuff, but um, yeah, I've kind of put, you know, I was talking to a friend about this the other day, who is also feeling very discouraged, and she's a really talented artist, and has just had not been able to find work recently, and I think I have to pull this leg back. Let's see. I'm starting to think this is not the way to go. It might just be worth starting from scratch here. Something about this pose just is not translating well. Yeah, let's just kind of, I'm just going to kind of rework. A lot of these outer details can really be reshaped if we need, but I'm just going to get, it's better to just start with a strong silhouette. So I'm going to kind of get a little loosey-goosey with this. But yeah, anyway, I was talking to her about, you know, she's kind of decided to pivot to other stuff for now. Like not stop making art or anything, but it's just like, you know, not looking for other means to pay for the bills. And what we were saying is just like, man, we're just like too far gone at this point. It's like, you know, this is what I've put the last, you know, I really put a lot of time and energy into developing these skills, you know, at least 7 or so years of my professional experience, not to mention all the years prior to that, just you know, of forming the foundation of those skills. And a lot of, you know, it's easy to think you can just kind of pivot to something, but you know, anything that is offering remotely competitive pay probably also requires about that amount of time to get that training in, you know. It's not necessarily uh even a practical choice to try to pivot to something else, because anything else will require a high amount of training, and a lot of those jobs aren't necessarily safe right now either. You know, nobody is necessarily exempt from this. I mean, some people are. My sister's a photographer, and she seems like that seems like a really practical kind of future-proof sort of profession, because people want to have real documentation of their experiences rather than generating them with a computer. Yeah, this is a little bit closer to what I was going for here. But yeah, I mean, it's life is too short to do anything that to spend time, or at least too much time, working on things that you don't love and you don't enjoy. And yeah, just for me personally, what I enjoy is the process, and I don't know. I think for most people who really care about their work and their craft, you know, it's the same kind of thing. You know, you're not something about the process is not only just, you know, maybe therapeutic, but it's just kind of a vital component of life. Um, for me at least, it's like eating and drinking, you know, and I just why would you have someone why would you want someone to eat for you or drink for you? Um, you know, it's kind of the same thing. Um, yeah. I'm still thinking this guy's kind of a little bit hunched. I think the top half is still leaning a bit far back. So let's just scooch this all the way forward. And his spikes are kind of... Talked a little bit last time about maybe doing some kind of antennae or... Antenna? Or something like that. But I kind of tried it on. I wasn't crazy about it. Just seemed to kind of push it into... Oh yeah, that's way better. Push it into more like generic territory. And I don't want him to be like a one-for-one lobster, even though I'm calling him the Lobster Man. A little bit more nuanced than that. One thing I'm kind of obsessed with and probably overuse in my posing is this kind of S shape. And once you see it, it's kind of hard to unsee it. Like when you're walking around, I keep seeing it at people waiting for at crosswalks. If you look at anybody who's just standing and they're probably looking at their phone, that's what people do when they're standing now, which really only increases this effect. But they're not standing straight like this. They're kind of their weight is distributed in an S curve, and their feet are usually their hips tend to be back a little bit, and then their shoulders are kind of forward. And obviously, you know, this gets increased when you have bad posture and stuff. But even then, it's just like, yeah, actually, it's almost more like hips forward, and maybe a little bit more like this, where you kind of, yeah, your feet are offset, your hips are slightly forward, and they're counterbalanced against, and there's this kind of like arch to the back of your legs. And then depending upon the pot, again, like I think I overuse this because whenever you know, discover kind of a interesting or compelling artistic concept, you know, I think people, myself at least, I have a tendency to just kind of beat it to death. But yeah, it seems to work really well. And I think I've dialed it back a little bit. I used to like really exaggerate it a lot more, which kind of looks a little bit cheesy sometimes. Actually, even though I said that, I'm actually going to make an adjustment to this guy just because I'm noticing it. The hips, actually, I'm just going to point it out for you guys. So like I said, the perspective is going this way, but the hips are kind of in the opposite direction, which is... It's a little bit okay because it's kind of a contrapposto stance, but I think it still looks a little bit too extreme. Like there's just obvious asymmetry happening here. And actually, I do want to kind of help to increase that contrapposto stance a little bit by... Do I, though? Because this guy he's kind of stiff. Like, I don't want to give him a really sassy, you know, kind of articulated pose. Like, I don't think that's the right word for this, but... I don't know. I think maybe I should just move the hips. I don't know if I need to do too much more than that. Maybe that'll do it. Sometimes... Yeah, I think that's better. Very Kojima of you to call it Lobster Man. Yeah. I'll show you what I was messing with before. It's just something like this, which, I don't know. It does break up the silhouette and provide another material. Basically, I was talking a little bit last time about like adding in different materials so your shapes are not too one note. So I added in this like kind of furry, fuzzy, like material that you see like here sometimes and in between joints on lobsters, which I find really interesting. And I put some of it here too. I never actually found out what that is or what it's for. I assume it's for like sifting out food particles or maybe for swimming or something. I don't know, but they kind of have it. Oh yeah, they have it on their little mandible things here. I don't know the actual term, but they also have it like near their eyes. So maybe it's for filtering out, like protecting their eyes from sand. Maybe I don't know. It's just really interesting. So that's like an additional material, and then like obviously these big bulky bits are kind of one material. These spikes are kind of another material, and then this sort of skin, this ripply skin in between the joints, which I added to make it kind of a little bit more humanoid underneath the shells. That's another material. So it's nice to have a few different, you know, materials in there. Create some diversity, create a hierarchy, break up the forms. But anyway, I'm gonna hold out on that particular decision for a minute, and I'm just gonna merge these actually because I fewer layers is usually more manageable for me. I do want to build on this neck thing I was doing back here, so I want to have like some kind of ridges. I guess he doesn't need to have like a huge hump thing back here. Hello, hello. Welcome. Oh, thank you. Appreciate the likes. Yeah. Yeah, I've been doing this for a while. So I think right now the only way people are going to find out about this is if they're in the Discord, or I posted something on LinkedIn this time, which I didn't do last time. Or if you're already subscribed to the channel, I believe you get a notification about when I'm going live here. But I have no I have no reason to think that this is being fed to new people, since it's long form content from a an account that's been basically dead for for 3 years. But that's fine. This is really for me anyway, so no, it's for you guys too, obviously. But yeah, this is a crab man, lobster man, some kind of crustacean guy. I don't know. I'm kind of pulling from a few different sources here, but that's yeah, that's the basic idea. Yeah. All right. I think this is getting. I think I have the general form in here, but this is getting kind of crazy loosey goosey. So I'm gonna knock down the opacity. Actually, I do want to separate this out. No. Cut paste. I'm gonna lower that. Now let's go in and actually make something here. And the tricky thing is keeping an eye on the front view to make sure things kind of line up. So this here is probably going to be somewhere back here. And this, by the way, is a very important skill to have as a concept artist, because if you were delivering this to a 3D artist, you can't just kind of keep making things up on both sides and just sort of hope that they're going to work well together. You actually have to pay attention to where things line up, because when they go into 3D and they see it looks this way on one side on the front view and it looks a different way on the back view, they're going to have to make a creative decision about which to go with, and that just slows the process down. I was talking a little bit last time about how it's really you can do it, but it's not optimal to be making creative decisions while you're in 3D. or you are making creative decisions, but they're on a micro level. You don't want to be making like large scale design decisions, because obviously when you go into 3D, a lot of this becomes sort of higher fidelity detail, in general, at least. So you want your decision making to be focused on that and how you're going to be executing that. So you don't want your 3D artist, even if you are the 3D artist, thinking of ahead for yourself later, or for myself later, because I think I'm going to be taking this guy into ZBrush later on. You don't want to force your 3D artist to kind of guess or try to interpolate between these two different ideas. You really want your front and back view to synchronize. So I think my ear is kind of just about here. And then it's kind of smooth from this point forward. Like I said, he has that kind of cranial bulge, which we're using to kind of sell the idea that he has something close to human intelligence, or at least something that rhymes with human intelligence, or approximates it. I don't know. But so let's see, coming around here, this is kind of has this bulge part on the front, and then maybe a few more of these kind of bulgy bits. And this is kind of where you have to start thinking a little bit more, and you can't just kind of stay in flow mode the whole time, as nice as that would be, because you have to start narrowing in. You have to start making kind of concrete decisions, and you can't just kind of go with whatever feels right. And I'm finding it feels a lot, I don't know, things are feeling kind of a little bit hairy in terms of the workflow here. So I see these are kind of moving towards the back here, so I want to reverse this direction. Have these move this way. And probably have them come out a little bit to kind of like simulate tricep sort of effect here. And something like that. Yeah, you can't forget to keep looking at some of these things. Yeah, this is a good one. We need more spikes, more spiky bits. You also have to start thinking about like, how is he going to move, especially if you're going to animate this. You really want to. All right, so for this claw, I've got one big one, then another smaller one in the back, and then kind of a little thumb thing. So I'll make sure I get those right. So this is a smaller one in the back. That's a little bit higher. We've got our big guy here. And that's actually going to be the edge of our silhouette, because our thumb is going to be on the interior side. So let's just close this off. And there is kind of a sort of a bundle of some spiky barnacle-ish things. It's tempting to just reuse what I did on the front, but I'm not going to do that, because we don't want that kind of complete symmetry. I'm going to give him a little bit of an elbow piece, like we did on the knees. And, want to think about when he's moving his arm, that these things can kind of flex forward. And then we've got this little lovely bit of wrinkly skin in there. Don't want to forget that. Um, so a little bit this, a little bit of spikiness. Gonna have this kind of overlap the body a little bit. And what are these? These are kind of more like feeling like horn kind of things. And this one's kind of segmented a little bit. Sometimes it's not always going to look quite as sexy from the back. You kind of have to make some adjustments, but I think this one is right here. Again, it doesn't have to be like one for one. It doesn't have to be perfectly exactly the same, but it's just the more you can do that, the easier it's going to be for you later on, or for the 3D artist, because that is the point of this type of art. You are creating the blueprint for an asset. All right, so for the back, I do want to kind of mimic this. I wish I had a good shot of that back part, but just something kind of segmented, yeah, like these, to really show that kind of flexion. So probably going to have something like this, and then just going to repeat that. Probably don't want it to be too pointy because that's not going to flex backwards very well. Maybe I'll kind of break it up and then revert to kind of a different sort of segment here. And then, let's see, these kind of come up. They're sort of mirroring the position of where the pelvis would be. And he might even have a little, give him a little lobster tail here. You can't really see it from the front. We can add that later, but not something large enough where we need to animate it necessarily. Not that I really think we're going to get around to animating this because, for one, I can animate. It's definitely not my not something I'm confident enough to do in a live setting, necessarily. But if we make a big long tail, then we'll have to set up a whole. I do use Mixamo sometimes, to just throw a rig and a quick animation on a character. That can be fun just for kind of proof of concept thing. And it's a little easier to do that if you don't have a tail that you then have to rig and weight separately. But I'm liking that idea, so I think we're gonna stick with that. I do want it to be kind of its own thing a little bit, so we're gonna. Maybe we can even include. Oh yeah, let's throw in some of those hairy little lobster gill bits, whatever those things are. I'm being very, like, look at the difference in the quality of line between this and the last one, and that's not because I've gotten worse at drawing. I hope. No, it's just because my mind is in a completely different place. Here, I was literally just flowing with whatever came out, and I was really spending a lot of time exploring the nuances of all these different cracks and crevices. And here I'm designing, I'm building, I'm planning. Um, because not only does this have to function in its own right, it has to work with the front view. So yeah, if things look really, what I'm probably going to do is I'm going to keep doing this kind of hairy sort of iteration, and then I'm going to repeat the same thing, drop the opacity, go on top, and refine the line work. Because right now it's just really important to me to get like the just to get these overall forms looking and feeling right, and working with the front side, and especially like solving exactly how um, how some of these back segments are going to work. It's really important. I remember that guy that made the mech robot out of crab shells. Crab crab shells, maybe. I don't know what crab shells are. Oh, that's very cool. Yeah, I would love to see that. Um, I'm a big fan of all animals and creatures, but definitely as I was talking about last time, I used to I used to if we'd go out to eat, I would try to get lobster whenever I could. Um, and it wasn't because I wanted to eat it necessarily. I just wanted to like look at it and sort of examine, because that's, what other chance are you gonna get to look this crazy, sea creature in the eyes. I've since stopped doing that, of course, because I understand now that I can observe and appreciate them um, from a distance while they're alive. Um, but as a kid, and I didn't end up eating that much of it too, and I think my mom caught on and stopped letting me order the lobster, but uh, expensive too, too expensive for what it is, I think. I didn't even realize till later in life, because I kind of didn't eat them for a long time, and then I went to a gathering when they were having lobster. Big thing in Maine, where some of my family is, and you crack open one of those things. There's not a whole lot to it, you know. It's just like the tail and the claws, and you'd think there would be a whole bunch of meat in that big. What I don't know what I'm showing with my hands. I can show you right here in my refs. This big old spot in the middle. You'd think it'd be filled with delicious meat, but nope. It's just weird green goop, and exoskeleton. Um, so yeah, I kind of a bit of a letdown there. They are not as useful as a food source as they are a object of wonder and bizarre um, bizarre evolution. I don't know. In my humble opinion, lobster was a yeah. I've heard that too. I heard they would just give it to prisoners, and stuff, because it was considered just like a just like the rats of the sea, basically. It's funny how perspectives can shift like that. Um, Now it's like this delicacy. Yeah, turns out the only way to kill this guy is to boil him in a pot. So if you ever come up, like I said last time, I think if we encountered him, we would try to reason and negotiate first, because he does look kind of vaguely humanoid, even though he's got a weird face. I think there's maybe potential we could reason with him or communicate with him, but if he got nasty, you know, I think we would just have to boil him. I think that's the only way to really deal with a guy like this. Having trouble kind of properly designing these back pieces. Trying to get everything to work together. Trying to get some good big, medium, small going on here too. Like I said last time, that's a really probably one of the most valuable uh, strategies that I would impart to anyone if they're trying to make strong designs. It's remarkable how much of it just comes down to shape, size, and variety, and texture variety, and that just variety in general. But not complete variety. You know, just finding that balance um, between too many things and uh, too many unique elements and too many homogeneous elements. But I think we're starting to. I'm also thinking about like where these are coming in the back. So they're probably again like a lot of these shapes I'm modeling from real life muscle groups, which just look cool, but also kind of help you to relate to it. I think more. You know, you look at armor and creature designs, and they tend to do that. Like this group is basically functioning as the lats, the lateralis. I think don't know all of the muscle groups by name, but I know what they look like, at least, and how they function generally. At least the major ones at this point. So, and then you have your other other bits. Those I actually can never remember the name of. The ones like under here. Oh shit! My back has been it's been in rough shape recently. Just remind me not to move. And the funny thing is, it was generally fine, just pretty stiff. And then I started to try to stretch it out and trying to fix it because I've just been abusing it for years and years from sitting at a desk and hunched over like a shrimp. And as soon as I start trying to stretch it and make it better, that's when all the pain has started to kick in. So especially today, man, it's just like one wrong movement and it's really just like shooting pain. So let that be a warning to all of you. Don't get old. No, don't, I don't know. If you're working at a desk, which probably a lot of you are, don't let it get this far. Keep moving, keep stretching. Because I think at a certain point it just kind of stratifies like fossilized animal remains. Just this, I have this fossilized spinal column, and now that I've started to try to move it, all the pieces are grinding against each other, and hopefully I can. I'm gonna try to keep stretching it and push past that, but yeah, for now it's not happy with me. I like this little tail. I feel like this is a nice a nice nod to our source material. And I'm leaving a bit of a gap behind the knee here, so that if he needs to move it, we need some space. We need some space in there, so there's going to be some wrinkly skin bits in there. Love me some skin bits. Don't quote me on that. All right, we're starting to narrow in on something. This is uncomfortably, and it's also because we have this other layer behind it, which I need to get rid of that soon. Maybe I'll just merge these down. Maybe I'm just going to erase this. Because I keep getting confused by the lines underneath. So I'm just going to erase this, bump up the opacity a little bit. Because I think I can use these other pieces pretty well. I'm just going to merge that down. Whoops, merged it wrong. There we go. Nice. Okay. Now we're getting somewhere. That way I can actually start to refine some of these areas without all this hairy line work. So on this back here, I want to have all kinds of stuff. I mean, I want this piece to read as one piece, but I also want like I have some crazy barnacles and spikes and just want like there have just been things kind of growing on his back for a long time. Yeah, I like the barnacle angle. Mammal atavistic gene still preserved in sounds right. Sounds very sciencey. I believe it. Sounds like good science. All right. Now we're getting somewhere. I want to make sure that this hip is overlapping this other arm. I think I might move this one forward a little bit. I want to give him a good stance. Maybe actually pull this in. And then this side, probably pull it in a little bit more because, oh God, I gotta stop moving. His shoulders are like hunched forward, so we're not going to see quite as much of this other arm. uh. No, it's just, sneaks up on you. Because when you're working on stuff like this, especially if you get into like a flow state, you just stop kind of paying attention to what your body is doing or what your body needs. And you do that for years and years. And yeah, not good. I'm not super crazy about. Might want to revisit the back side of this. I don't know. Something about these shapes is just strange for me, but there's also like this thing I don't want to forget about, which is this kind of like crease at the edge of. I wonder if the crabs have it. I love these guys. Oh, there's a lobster there too. Look at them all getting along. They're probably in a tank of food. No, that's outside, I think. But there tends to be like a little bit of a crease around the ends of segments. I'm not seeing it so much here, but so anyway, just don't want to forget about that because I think it's a cool, like if I were to go in and do it, it'd be something like this, you know. Definitely, I want to hold on to that because I think it's a nice way to. The good thing about bringing this into 3D is it's all organic sculpting. Um, I do really enjoy hard surface sculpting and modeling, but it's kind of a whole other game. And it's more cerebral, I think. It's a little bit more, it requires a bit more thought in planning and strategizing, which is a little harder to do in a live stream. Um, so yeah, I'm glad we're going with something more organic here and not like a. I mean, we'll probably do like a something sci-fi or hard surface at some point, but um, just kind of focusing. It's a little bit easier to let things flow this way. And I don't like how this barnacle is right in the middle there, so I'm gonna kind of shift that. And it needs some buddies. It needs some barnacle buddies to help balance out that larger shape. And I'm falling into this trap too of doing a little bit too much back and forth, just getting like really sketchy and not really committing to certain ideas, which I have to be careful of. It's something I did a lot more when I was younger. I've maybe learned to stray away from that a little bit more, but I find the longer I work, the more kind of loosey-goosey I get, especially when I'm trying to plan or concept something out, and you just kind of keep trying different things and none of them work, and it's a little bit easy to just fall into the trap of constantly reworking things and not letting them sort of settle and become solidified. So I'm trying to resist that impulse a little bit. So I'm liking how these barnacles are breaking up the surface area here. So I think I'm gonna work some of those into this side. There's a chance I may actually want to convert these shapes into actual barnacles, but we'll see. It could be cool. Evan, did you try to hit the gym exercise? Yeah, that's actually probably what set this off the other day. I was sometimes I do the shrugs with weights to work on my trapezius, I think. And and sometimes, and this bothers the hell out of me. I know some people like to do it this way, but I hate it. Some people like to move around to different things and let other people work in sets into their thing, which, in theory is more efficient. Everybody gets kind of more time in because you don't have to Like you're not doing your set and then waiting at the machine for things to recover before you do another set. So in theory, I understand the purpose of it, but I just don't like to do things that way. I like to go to a space, get my workout in, and then go to another thing. Um, but this guy was he was kind of going all over the place, and he left his stuff at the shrug station. And so I kind of looked around. I didn't see anybody. I was like, oh, maybe somebody just forgot their stuff there. So I went in and he came up. He was nice about it. He was like, oh yeah, I'm just like, you know, I let people work in, but I'm just gonna come back and do these things. But he had like a huge amount of weight on there, not just like a little bit more than I was accustomed to. And me being who I am, I was like, I really don't want to do this, but I just want to get this in and get out of here. So, I was coming in and working in a set in between his, but because he was using more weight than I was just kind of like, whatever. I'll just do it with this extra weight. I don't care. I can. It's close enough. And it was, but I think I just, you know, I was rushing it. I wanted to get in and out of there, um, and it was too much weight, and I probably just made things worse. Uh, so, and it's my lower back. Like I wasn't even working my lower back, but like I try to, like you do have to keep your core stable so that you can push against the ground for that movement. And I think I must have tweaked it a little bit then there, but anyway, I blame it all on him. No, totally on me. I could have chosen to approach that differently. I get very um I don't like dealing with those kinds of situations. So I generally just leave. I'm actually surprised I ended up trying to work in with his system, but I don't know. I think that's probably it is what it is. Anyway, that may have contributed to that issue there. All right, so I like this sequence here. I do want to, it's kind of straight down. I want to give him a little bit of a, speaking of lower back, I want to give him a little bit of a nudge in to reinforce this kind of S shape that I was talking about earlier. We don't want a straight up and down. It's probably good. Raise up the hips a little bit. I think I'll do it. You know what? I don't think that helped. I think maybe I just need to do a subtler version of that. Liquefy is not always going to fix your problems. Better to just draw it well in the first place, but sometimes I get lazy. It's a nice thing about going back to the sketchbook every now and then, which I've been doing more recently. It really teaches you to be careful and intentional with your strokes. What does his stomach look like? I didn't really develop this much. Maybe we'll go back to this and kind of I think this is all kind of skin things, but then there's this big plate here, so I think we'll want to have it detach at the hip. And then something like this. And then we'll have skin in between. I think that makes sense. Maybe this will overlap slightly, because I don't know, with crustaceans, things tend to overlap versus, I think generally, maybe not. I guess if they're moving around one another, we'll just go with that. All right, yeah, thanks for stopping in, Sabrina. Yeah, feel free to catch up on the rest of it later. But it was nice seeing you. All right, let's go back to this side. I'm realizing now how ambitious it was for me to think I was going to get into 3D today. I mean, I could. It's just, there's so much. Like I said last time, the more I can define and solidify during the sketch phase, the easier it's going to be when we go to 3D. So I want to make this whole process as smooth as possible. And I'm just going to grab some more coffee. Be right back. Turns out I drank it all. Oh, that's my old man phone ringtone. Oh boy. Okay. Got this piece, this piece. We're getting there. Man, I think after this, I'm just gonna lie down for about 2 days. I think that's the best thing for me at this point. Turns out you can always make more. Oh yeah. Big fan of coffee. I'm trying to keep it minimal, keep it earlier in the day, but yeah, I'm pretty useless without it at this point. Let's see. I'm kind of I want to be careful with this. These spikes look cool, but thinking about rear knee flexion, that might create some problems. So I want to make sure I'm being practical here. What does the front look like? We have this kind of divot. So we have that it goes a little higher on the sides, and then it goes down in the front. And we're going to kind of do the same thing back here. Really find ZBrush a pain to work in. Controls are so weird, and I wish the zoom and zoom out was like Photoshop. I agree. From day one, I really disliked the navigation controls in ZBrush. And I think people who started in it earlier, or who never worked in 2D software, or who never worked in Blender, they got used to it. I have gotten used to it. I still think it's terrible. ZBrush is a very strange program because it's very old, relatively speaking, and I believe it was designed originally as a 2D program or like a 2.5D software, which is why you get that weird interface when you start up where you're drawing the cube on the canvas there, or so I've been told. And yeah, the navigational controls are just, I guess it makes sense for something that is primarily pen driven. Um, Even so, like Blender, you can navigate fine with a pen if you set one of the buttons to middle mouse click. Um, and Blender's navigation is, as far as I'm concerned, it's you know fantastic. Um, yeah, the whole like alt. The thing with ZBrush though is there are a few different ways to go about it. I figured out pretty late in the game that there was a better way to navigate than what I was doing. I was using like alt and click for a lot of things, but I'm trying to remember like I think I just used right pen click to rotate and control right click to zoom in and out. I'm not sure. It's still not perfect, but you kind of get used to it. But like yeah, like the snapping, the shift snapping to different sides, it's just really janky and yeah, I'm not a fan. I've gotten used to it. I still think ZBrush is, far superior when it comes to sculpting than Blender, although to be fair, I haven't really tried that hard to sculpt in Blender. Um, and I think there are a lot of plugins that can really make your life easier there and maybe get close to what ZBrush can do. Um, but I haven't found anything like Z Remesh in Blender. All of they have remesh tools, but like something with that kind of algorithm, I haven't found anything like it. There's probably a plugin that closely mimics it, maybe. But that is a very useful function of ZBrush. Um, but I'm pretty confident that you can do an entire 3D pipeline all in Blender. And in fact, I've been meaning to kind of transition to that because again, like you cannot beat the price. Like if you are not, if you're self-employed or you're just doing personal work or whatever it is, like um yeah, like if you are trying to get a job as a 3D artist, they're going to want you to know ZBrush and probably Maya, even though as far as I'm concerned, Maya is just obsolete at this point. But I say that as somebody who didn't learn 3D when Maya was the only software. But as far as I can tell, Blender is superior in practically every way. Maybe not for animation, and or rigging. I'm not totally sure because that's not my expertise there. But um, yeah, yeah, it's kind of dumb. A lot of the when these programs just kind of continue to be something you put on your portfolio. A lot of our 3D environmental artists are using Blender. I've been trying to convert our character artists for the past couple of years, but they're kind of set in their ways. um, Blender has a lot of really cool tools for environment art, especially a lot of like procedurally based materials, which um, I think there's a time and place for it. I think anything that you um, it's kind of the same thing with AI, but procedural is different because it's strictly algorithmic and not necessarily it's not generative based on um, large data sets. So it's very different. But also like the more you rely on procedural effects in your work, the less design control you have, which means that I often see stuff that is procedurally generated that might look like realistic or something, but it's just not well designed. And that kind of stuff adds up. So I think it has its time and place if it's done tastefully, but I don't know. It's the same that goes with any 3D software. Like there are always ways you can do things more efficiently or ways you can get kind of like realistic materials and stuff like that, but nothing replaces good design, and that's really something that you need to um especially it's I don't know. It could be argued that as a strictly 3D artist that you don't necessarily need to be able to design well cuz ideally it's all done by the concept artists. But it's never going to be that high fidelity, like rarely. And you'll probably encounter a situation like we, often do, where we don't have time to concept everything, and we're just like, hey, can you just make something? Um, and having the ability to design in that space is very useful, especially on a small team. Now, it's probably not something that a larger company is ever going to require of you, from what I understand. Again, I haven't worked at a large company. Um, but it's not just that. I think even if you do have a really well fleshed out concept, you're still going to have to make design choices. Like, again, it's just more micro versus macro. So, and those things really add up. And especially like the ability to preserve the concept often requires that you understand the design intent behind the concept too. So, executing the concept, requires you to understand on executing the concept well requires you to understand what makes it work well. Uh, even if you're copying as closely as you can, you're not going to necessarily pick up on those nuances unless you understand, like, yes, this is big, medium, small, and stuff. And like, you know, as a 3D artist, if you go in and you're just seeing like, oh, it's just this plate, this plate, this plate, and you don't understand the relationship between them and what makes them dynamic or interesting, then when you go in and try to fill in the gaps, you're going to create kind of you're at risk, I should say, of creating a less interesting result in your 3D 3D pass. I'm gonna have a little of those hairy bits here just because I kind of saw them and I just think those are so cool. All right, so we have, let's show where our front hip piece is. I'm gonna just kind of close off this arm shape. It's getting a little too hairy. I'm gonna show where the skin is, and I want to show where our front armor piece is. It's probably somewhere about there. And yeah, I think that'll do it. There's some stuff on like the sides here that I'm more confident in my own ability to interpret and interpolate between them when I go to 3D, but sometimes you really have to spell stuff out, and some 3D artists really only work that way. Like my friend puts it, like Anchorman with the teleprompter. They just they just read whatever they're given, and they're not necessarily thinking about it, or well, they're just, so if you're not very specific about something in your concept, they might just kind of go a direction with it that you did not anticipate, and that's not really on them necessarily. As a concept artist, you have to also think like a 3D artist, and think about like, hey, if I were going to sculpt this, how would I interpret this? Like, you might make a bunch of kind of scratchy lines, and in your mind, you're like, oh, that's obviously, barnacles or whatever. But if it doesn't come through in the concept, then, they're going to fill in the gaps with something that maybe you didn't necessarily intend. And depending upon your team and how they work, you may not have that many opportunities to check in with them and correct that. So they might get really far into the 3D design, and then you realize they kind of completely misinterpreted what you in your mind had intended. But yes, butter and lemon. Thank you. I'm glad the drawing looks cool. I'm seeing that I'm getting like a warning on the YouTube thing that says the stream bitrate is lower than recommended. Let me know if there's any quality issues coming through on your end, because sometimes it just that pops up and it doesn't mean anything. But yeah, if like the quality is less or anything, let me know, and I'm I can maybe try to tweak some settings. Which is strange. The last stream, I'm pretty sure I used the same settings, and I think it was fine. But okay, yeah, glad it looks good. Yeah, just let me know if anything gets weird there. Cool. And yeah, just like with last time, like I'm kind of using this sort of faked depth effect, which I really like using when I'm just using graphite or drawing, um, where um, sort of more distant areas or areas that are overlapping. I'm not really doing it here, but sometimes I go back in later and I do a little bit of a erase just to kind of separate these out. So things that are receding further back in the distance, I'm using a lighter value than things that are advancing or that are in the foreground. I'm not sure what's going on here, but I gotta tighten it up. Yeah, and I think like with something like this, it's easy to develop kind of fatigue with like making these same sort of shape language decisions over and over. So it's easy to get lazy. I'm feeling a bit lazy with it right now, but resist the temptation, because this is all stuff we're gonna have to figure out sooner or later. I guess it's more like design fatigue, where I'm like, I just don't. I want to stop making decisions about this, and I just want to make it. But you cannot rush good art. Um, it is Father's Day, which um, I didn't even know when I set up the stream. I just knew I wanted to do another Sunday stream. Um, but I think it's very appropriate. My dad was an artist in his own way. I don't think he ever tried to make much of a career out of it. Never really tried to make much of a career at all. Just kind of preferred to live um, very um, within small means and be self sufficient and not really make a lot of money. But he was a painter. He played music, and so I think he would be pretty psyched that maybe not psyched is the word. I don't think he was ever described him as being psyched, but I think he would be pleased to know this is how I was using that this time. Um, he never really got into stuff like this. I think he liked kind of more nature and I mean this is not that I don't. I love anything that's nature inspired, but I think he kind of kept to more. I guess he did do some kind of like fantasy stuff. He did like some little goblins and gremlins sometimes with clay. Those are pretty cool. I really want to get back into working with clay. I really miss that. Um, this is a relic of my ceramics days. This was the first. Oh my god! I just almost spilled coffee on everything. This is the first hand built cup that I made. I'm pretty sure. You can tell because of if you look at this horn. I completely screwed it up by making these all like a solid piece and twisting them into shape, which is just like a ceramics no basically, because the clay has these flat particles and they have a memory. So when you move them in a certain way, when you fire them, when you bake them, they tend to reverse that movement. So I twisted the horns into shape to make them, and then when I fired them, they untwisted and started cracking and breaking off. So they've broken off a couple of times. I've glued them back on, um, and the cup survives. I've got a few of these left. Um, but yeah, that was really fun. Anyway, back to Lobster Guy. I think we were narrowing in on something here. I do have to make a decision about this leg. It's coming out here. Let's just make the silhouette. Let's just dive into it. Just make it simple, and then we can, I don't know, skim it up a little bit. I think I'm just having trouble because this is almost forming a tangent with the arm. So, and I don't want to make the leg too much thicker. Let's flip it, see what's happening here. I think I want the leg to come in right about here, which is exactly where the edge of that arm is, and I don't want to make the arm too much thicker. I guess I could. What is this, right arm? I mean, you know, I don't want to make design decisions just so the back view looks nice, but I think there's a way to do this properly. I don't want to bring the arm in this way because it kind of diminishes his imposing form. So I think I'm just going to, let's do this. I'm probably going to move it out. I want to move it out. Let's try it. That's the beautiful thing about the digital medium. I'm just going to move my pivot point here, and then, yeah, I think that'll be fine. I mean, yeah, it doesn't have to be the most realistic pose. Like, this is specifically to design something, so yeah, having a sexy pose looks nice, but also having overlap looks nice. But this is not really about that. This is about readability. And I'm seeing that his hips, are his hips lower, or is that just because he has a tail? I'm just going to sketch in the tail here because I want to make sure that's, I don't know, you can't really see it, but so I don't forget that's there. Let's go back to this. Go back to our, yeah, and I think now we have a little bit more room to explore. When we go to sculpt this, he's going to be in a, I generally don't do a straight T pose. I do kind of an A pose, which is, you know, his arms would probably be somewhere out here. So it's good to have a little space to show what this underarm detail is going to be doing. And I have these plates overlapping here. I want to make sure I do that on this side too, because I like that sort of overlapping effect. And this goes down here. I kind of don't really want to worry about color. I don't know. But I also don't want to like have to go back and make those decisions later. So I'm probably going to do just a very basic color pass, just so I can at least get an idea. Because, I don't know, the color is not necessarily going to influence the sculpt, but you don't want to finish a sculpt and then realize that, like, you don't have a good color composition to go with that. Um, I don't know. It's not a massive consideration, but I think it's more to do with like if you have very um rigid discrete elements, like if we were doing a hard surface or like a character design with a lot of different costume elements, it would be more important to explore color here. With this guy, I mean, most of his selling point is going to be the sculpt. Um, I don't anticipate doing anything really crazy with the colors. I mean, we could do something like this, but it's all organic, you know? It's like we can blend it in whatever way we need. So that would actually be kind of interesting. This is a color scheme I would probably never use on my own, but I don't know. There's some interesting directions we could go here. We could explore a little bit. I don't know. Could be fun. Um, sometimes I just don't want to deal with color. It's just too many variables at once. All right, I'm gonna do a little bit of the fuzzy furry here. Imagine this character in a world building that thermal springs are major. Yeah, that would be an interesting environmental hazard to navigate. All right, the one thing that I think we really have to, I think with the leg, a lot of this stuff I can kind of fill in later. It's just this shape, and then with some barnacle, bits and stuff. That's again where like I know myself, like I trust my ability as a 3D artist to fill in the gaps in that space. But and to do it in an interesting and well-designed way. I'm developing this maybe a little bit less because you know, because it is a live stream and I don't want to take too much time with this, but also because yeah, I trust myself a little bit more to be able to make some of those smaller design decisions later on in the process. Okay. So barnacles could have a different color. Yep. That's a good point. I've actually made that same um not mistake, but it is a consideration because we're placing them here in the sketch, but if we place them in a way that doesn't work when the color is different, that's something that could backfire later potentially. Okay, so I kind of like sketched out what I want to do with this back foot. I think the way I'm gonna do it is gonna be something like this. It's pretty similar to the front, but it's not protruding as much. And maybe these side things, maybe the foot profile, and this is actually would be a really great thing to pass on to the 3D artist. But I'm just gonna let's do a little symmetry here. Do the foot profile. It's probably something like this. So toes are facing forward. So we have our smaller shapes here, a little bit of space between them. And actually, what I would like to do is have some deliberate asymmetry here. So do I want the smaller one on the inside? I think I want the smaller one on the inside. Kind of an arbitrary decision, but also I feel like maybe not. Because human feet, the larger digits are on the inside. Maybe I do want the larger one on the inside. I don't know. There's only 3 of them, so it doesn't really matter so much, but maybe something more like that. Yeah, I mean, it's a small decision, but it matters in the grand scheme of things. And having something that was perfectly symmetrical, like for an organic critter like this guy, I think that would be that would not be good. So this is kind of our top-down foot profile, I think. So let's go back to this. And these are going to be oriented forward a bit more, which is why we needed that little sketch, so that we can remind ourselves that, you know, these are facing forward. And this one we probably won't see so much, maybe just the edge of it. This one we'll see a little bit more, but it's still, let's see, this is the interior, so it's slightly larger. Yeah. And again, as with the front, just because of our perspective, the way he's oriented, we have a perspective kind of going this way. So I have this this foot here a little bit lower to indicate, you know, his position on a 3D plane. Yeah, this is all pretty hairy, but I'm kind of feeling, I don't know, maybe I'm rushing this a little bit, but I do want to get to the next phase of things, so let's see. Debating whether I want to copy it out and work on the line work a little bit more, or let's see, one thing I do want to do, I gotta fix this left leg because it's feeling kind of thick in the wrong way. Maybe this is a little bit closer. All right, let's try that. I think I lost some of the silhouette there. I think it's okay. I wouldn't describe it as an improvement, full stop, but I think it's maybe a little bit closer. I've also thought about maybe doing another midweek stream, just because I felt like this week I was really, really kind of itching to get back into working on this guy, and I didn't really want to wait till Sunday, so um, I don't know. Keep an eye out. I might do a surprise kind of midweek stream, but I think, you know, I will be um, picking up next Sunday as well. And, you know, yeah, of course, you guys are free um, to view these at any time. You know, it's nice to hop in the chat and say hi, but you know, you can always catch up later on. I feel like the leg, front and back view. This one looks okay. This one's feeling a little bit thick. Let's try to dial that back in. It's not quite as spiky, I think. I think the front side I will use as more of a detail reference. Generally, the back side doesn't have to be quite as, you know, quite as much. In terms of specifying details about the material, it's like kind of by this point, you know, I'll sort of get it, you know, in terms of how the materials work. But like I said, every little bit that we can specify here, because you don't really realize it when you're doing concept, but when a 3D artist, whether that's yourself or someone else, is going in later to sculpt this, they're going to be zooming in and they're going to be looking for information in places like this, because they need to be able to create that kind of fidelity in their sculpt. So it's not always just detailing for detail's sake. It's like making micro decisions, stuff like that. So is creating these two views mandatory for 3D software, or your just reference to be able, just your reference to be able to work on the sculpture? It's somewhere in between. It's definitely God, my Windows is making noises at me. I don't know why. All right. It's the best course, you know, for a asset pipeline, to have a fully fleshed out concept before you go into 3D. You know, I am capable of diving into ZBrush and making something, and even just sketching something from scratch in ZBrush. But if you have a specific brief or something that you're really actually trying to make, that's not just kind of, which is not what I'm doing in this case, but if that is the case, you definitely want to have a solid concept going in. And also just for the reason that, like, just because you can design in 3D doesn't mean you should. It can be fun and it can be a nice way to explore ideas, but I feel like inevitably you're going to hit a point where you're trying to make a whole bunch of design decisions while you are trying to figure out the best way to detail something or the best way to approach a particular surface. Again, with organic stuff, it's a little bit more forgiving. You know, you can get away with designing more in 3D. I think with hard surface, not so much. But yeah, it's just like, you know, these are all decisions that you're going to have to end up making anyway. So you might as well do them in a medium that is designed to facilitate those kinds of decisions. So like sketching, you know, is the best way to design something. You know, that can include 3D sketching. But even so, like introducing two other dimensions into your work creates a lot more variables for you to deal with. So basically what you're doing is, and what I'm doing, is I'm limiting the number of variables I have to deal with at any given time. Right now, I'm not dealing with color. I'm not dealing with 3 dimensions. I'm not dealing with textures so much, really. I'm kind of alluding to textures, but I'm really focusing on the overall form and the design and kind of the pieces that all fit together. And sketching and I don't have to deal with things like voxel density or mesh resolution, anything like that. I don't have to deal with different, working with different brushes or having to remesh or anything like that. Which if you're sketching in 3D, you're just gonna have to keep working with those things. Um, and yeah, it's just in my opinion, and I think generally is agreed upon that making these kinds of larger design decisions is best done in the sketching phase. And so and I also just love drawing. So and this is what I was going to do anyway with these streams. Um, and I didn't really think about whether I was going to go into 3D. Um, but I would like to, but I know like it's just so much easier to, if I want to make some barnacles, I can just go like boom, 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 sketch them out. In 3D, it's not quite so easy. But it's not like the software says upload front view, upload back view, and then creates a 3D object by itself. I'm not. No, I mean nothing is being uploaded here. This is just sort of a design reference. Um, I think there are versions of generative AI programs that can do that kind of thing now, but it's probably very not optimal. And again, not really what I'm interested in doing. So, and especially with a sketch, like I don't think they can. I don't know, maybe. Uh, that's not part of the traditional pipeline, at least, and certainly not part of my process. So yeah, this is as a guide, as a map, a blueprint, basically. When we go into ZBrush, we will keep this on our reference board along with our other references, and we're going to keep looking at it. We're going to use it to guide a lot of our decisions. So instead of like having to make them in that moment, just look at the concept. Oh yeah, that's how that goes, and then we can focus on other decisions that need to be made during the 3D process, which are often very different than the kind of decisions we have to make during a sketch. And we'll get to some of those decisions, and how I navigate them when we get into that part of the process. But um, yeah, hope that makes sense. All right. So I think um let's see. I guess we do want to define the back of this. Let me see here. The hand is kind of shaped this way, so we're going to have our inner. Let me see. This, I don't know why I have this here. That's not real. The thumb is going to be kind of hidden on this other side. We're going to call it a thumb. It's not really a thumb. Actually do want these to be a little sharper. Yeah, I want these to be a little bit more kind of spiky crustacean kind of, rather than bony. So I'm going to spike them out a little bit. And then, yes, the thumb is going to be somewhere around here. It's kind of segmented like this. And then this is actually a good opportunity to show what the underside of the hand is going to look like over here. Or, hand for lack of a better term. It's kind of more of a claw. But this is typically where we would see a little bit more. I want all of this. Let me see here. Think for a minute. There is a little bit of a spike here. And then I'm going to worry about adjusting this value later on. But yeah, especially especially with clay. I did, yeah, when I was working in ceramic sculpture. Yeah, I was still doing sketches. Especially, yeah, I think especially, even with clay. Um, Maybe not modeling clay so much. I think with modeling clay, you still have to plot out maybe if you're going to create an armature or that kind of thing, how you're going to set that up. But I know with earthenware clay, you have to make a lot of design decisions ahead of time about how you're going to construct it so that it will fire properly. I did this whole series of clay dragons, and part of what I had to sketch out first was, how all the pieces were going to fit together. Make sure you don't have any like loose bits hanging off, like a tail kind of floating off into space, because that's just going to break off if you nudge it slightly. So you want to make sure everything is coming together and is kind of a whole that is solid structurally, and also, how you're going to hollow it out, because you can't just fire a solid piece of clay. You need to make sure that it's, about half an inch thick at most, and that the rest is hollow. So, and how are you going to build something that is that, some of these were like almost 2.5 feet long. So how are you going to approach building something like that when you have to make sure the whole thing is hollow? Um, you know, and I think with with digital 3D, you know, there are still arguably even more limitations. Well, less and more, because you can create long sort of tendrils and things. You don't have to worry about the material itself breaking unless you are going to 3D print them. Then you have other considerations to make with the design. But, um, there are, um, what's that saying? There are a dozen ways to skin a cat or something. Um, Many ways to skin a cat. And 3D is no exception there. There are always at least, 3 or 4 different ways to approach something. And they're going to give you different results. And they're going to be more or less efficient. So yeah, there are a lot of those kind of decisions you have to make along the way once you get into that software. This is looking weird. This needs to overlap, I think. And I was resisting the idea of overlapping, but I think we have to. And then, yeah, how is the inside of this hand going to function? Does it? I don't think it really clenches in. It doesn't seem like these have movement, but maybe these outer digits, like maybe it can kind of spread them a little bit. So we want to have a little bit of joint flexibility, but other than that, I think these are mostly just for, I don't know, scraping and digging and bashing. These are not the tools of a craftsman here. So yeah, I think the thumb and left and the smaller finger can sort of move. So I'm going to create space for that. But the main claw part, I think that is kind of fused with the arm here. It's looking kind of weird right now, though. I think this needs to come in. And I think we need some clear overlap. It's just going to lower the value. Probably Move this out a little bit. I suspect the Lobster Man is really bad at calligraphy, yeah. Yeah, he's mostly good for pinching and um, I don't know. I assume he can swim to a limited degree, but he also is not really built like a swimmer. He kind of seems like someone who just sort of hangs out in coral reefs. Um, and I don't know, I'm not totally sure what he does there, but yeah, I want to have some overlap here, some kind of extra wrinkles that we can work with. And man, I'm trying to match the front as best I can. Oh yeah, I think that's a little better. I think this is enough. I think this is probably enough. All right, so let me just, I'm going to create a little bit of depth. Erase out some of these rear areas. Again, I try to do this while I'm sketching in, but now I'm just kind of going in and I want to solidify too. Let's just get a good solid outline, at least on some of these foreground elements. I just want to really, I don't know, this is kind of more of a visual polish than it is really helpful in the 3D, but it just kind of helps the whole thing read a little bit better. Helps kind of fight against the hairiness. Definitely not going for like a cell shaded look or anything, but and then I don't know, we still have to make this decision here. You know what? Let's actually explore this on a different layer, and if we want to commit to it, we can. Okay. Let's get the perspective right. Or try to at least. And back here, be something like this. Maybe if we double it up, it might be interesting. No. How's this going to work? Something like that, I think. It's very foreshortened on the back side. This is probably an example. Somebody was asking last time about when I would use smoothing, and I probably should be using smoothing for this, but I'm just being lazy, making it very hairy instead. Let's take it a step further. I'm just instead of erasing, I'm just gonna use a little bit of white on this layer because I really don't want to commit to this. But I think I think we can do it. I think it'll work. It's like easy enough to get rid of later if we want to, but I think it adds some flavor, a little bit of extra silhouette. Yeah, it's a little bit on the nose. Um like yes, we get it. He's a lobster. But serves its purpose. It contrasts the hard, rugged elements really nicely. A lot of this character is just solid and, you know, crunchy, and this is like kind of wispy and sort of maybe we can do something more interesting with it, like have some sort of sensors or little frilly kind of bits, so it's not just like one-to-one lobster antenna. That would be nice, and that will help push that sort of even more, that sort of like delicate, more maybe we could even have like something like this. They're just like sensory apparati. I think that's right. Apparatuses. No, I think it's apparati. Um, that, you know, it also, yeah, yeah, I think this is good. Now I do have to kind of show, like these can't just be, I'm gonna add that white again. I feel like adding this white is it's gonna really screw me in the end because a lot of this is based in opacity, but I don't know. I guess I would call this a non-destructive workflow. Honestly, if I wanted to be actually non-destructive about it, I would just copy these, which is, I'm just gonna do that. And then merge these and get rid of these. So now we can really commit to this idea. And show it from, a few different standpoints. This is going to be an interesting challenge in 3D as well, to create like these sort of more delicate structures. Might even have to create cards, which should be an interesting, definitely a more technical approach. And it also, I mean, that depends upon whether I actually want this to be, you know, animation ready, or if I just want to make a cool sculpt. I haven't really decided yet. I do love retopology, but I can't guarantee that's the most exciting thing to watch. I find it incredibly satisfying, but I don't know if you guys would. My back. All right. And then, yes, we have these little flalalas. That's what I'm going to call them. The flilulus. Flinglongs. Kind of like, I mean, they're based on, oh, I love these little, should he have like some of these little squid squirrely things in here? These are cool. Hang on. Let me see. If they were like, yeah, I'm into that. Like, just if you look closely enough, you're going to see these little twisty, tentacly kind of things. Yeah, it's a little bit higher resolution than what we're doing here, but I'm just kind of making a note of it for myself for later. Yeah. Okay. I'm just gonna move this one in, get the perspective right. That's cool. This one, I feel like would be a little bit more like that. Yeah, definitely makes him a little bit more, a little less human, a little bit creepier, and I'm into it. We also have these like blank white staring eyes, which realistically we're probably going to do something more like this, which is a little bit, I don't know, arguably cuter, also arguably creepier. Um, to have like this black shiny thing there. I don't know. I guess we'll do it with this one too. Starting to look, he's starting to look more human actually. Maybe like we'll even give him some like eyelids and stuff. So we're really like everything else is very crustacean and animal, but when we go into the face, we could do like a could because like there are these other parts that have human skin almost at least. So why not give him kind of a bit of he looks kind of sad now, which I think gives him more depth. Like he's perpetually misunderstood by fishermen who try to harpoon him when he's really just trying to have a conversation. He's like the opposite of a mermaid. Uh, is, I think it's like instead of the the beautiful sea creature that lures them out into sea, he's like to their doom. He like really wants to be friends with them, um, but every time he tries to reveal himself, he gets harpooned. So he has some. I think he's gonna have some kind of scratches and scritches. You know, he's gonna have some some scars um from all the times he was harpooned. I don't know. That's really funny to me. So yeah, we want him to have. Oh, and this is gonna be really fun when we get into sculpting, doing all these little nicks and decays and like. Yeah, I mean, I could spend a lot of time sketching that stuff. I don't think we necessarily have to. I'm kind of just like making mental notes for myself. Like this is how I want, you know. Let's see. And I think all of this is kind of reading is very dark, so I'm gonna. Very sad, Lobster Man. Always misunderstood. Um, nice. I'm liking this. I'm liking this guy. I'm liking the narrative. I'm liking the design language. Some things on this back, maybe we'll have to work out. But oh, and I want to. This is not reading particularly well, so I want to get in here and make sure this overlap is properly defined. Again, not necessarily a concept thing, more of just a presentation thing. I want to make sure that there's strong overlap happening here. There's not confusion about which side is in front. Probably going to do the same thing here. Just sort of solidify these parts. A lot of these edge things are kind of arbitrary, but even along the edge, we want to make sure we break it up and leave spaces for the eye to rest. Which again, as we went over this a little bit last time, but you know, spaces where the eye rests are very important. Spaces like this, or this, or this. You know, we don't want, and then we want spaces of detail to contrast with those spaces. And I think this tail needs to be clarified. You know, we have plate, and then we have what are we going to call this? I keep calling it fur. It's not fur. but I guess let's call it fur. I don't know. I want to be clear about where one begins and the other ends, where there's overlap. Yeah. And then the same thing on this side. And I don't want it to be just like consistent. I'm making breaks, you know. Yeah, I could spend a lot of time refining these details. But I think I'm going to try to wrap this for today. Yeah. Let's do a quick color pass, or at least a value pass. I'm going to do kind of a blue for my shadows here. Let's do this. Why? Why are you doing this? Brush. Oh, I'm on eraser. This is an eraser. That's why. All right. Let's just do soft round and maybe I could use my paintbrush. I really like this one. It's mostly for mix brush, but it also serves as a, I don't know, serves as a fill brush when it needs to be. Yes, we did. I've committed to it. There's a way to do this where we do like a solid outline around the whole thing and then we just do a fill. But I don't know. I guess I'm kind of old-fashioned like this. It's nice to like have spent all this time making design decisions and then to take a break. This is what I'm talking about with the process, like, you know, giving your brain different kicks at different times. You know, like I just spent all this time designing and sketching and now I just, yeah, sure we could do a solid outline and then just hit it with the fill bucket, but I just want to spend some time doing something simple and mindless. So that's what we're doing. This is also a good opportunity to see like how your silhouette reads. So, and then this is just like paint by number, you don't have to think. You just filling in the lines as best you can. Actually, I never block in with this brush. This is kind of interesting. It's definitely not the right brush for it, but it feels a bit more organic. I know I have to clarify some of the lines around these legs too, but whatever. I'm kind of expediting things a little bit here. Actually, I am just going to switch to this one, which is a little bit more versatile. Is it versatile or versatile? I don't know. I never know. Should probably look it up at some point. I do try to get words right as often as I can, but there's so many, and that's just in English. It always amazes me, people that can learn multiple languages. I've attempted that a little bit myself, but I don't know. I guess I've always just been preferred to dive deeply into one thing than, well, that's not really true either. Ah, see, that white is coming back to mess with us. I knew it. I knew that was a mistake, and I did it anyway. It's okay. Okay. All right, now I'm going to go back to my sketch and just edit some of that out. It's okay. All right, back to this. Let's fill in our front view really quick. Just going to block out major stuff. And then I'll go back in and refine. I don't know. I rarely do blockouts this way, but I'm just switching it up because it's more interesting to me. There's that white again. We'll come back and fix that. All right. This. A little of that. Let's go back and polish this up. Again, this is going to help us see if there are any problems with our silhouette. That's also not strictly a concept slash, switch my eraser, concept slash design issue, but it is a presentation issue. And, if you want to put something on your portfolio or show it off, it's important to have good presentation. And I don't know. And it does make it more readable if you have a strong silhouette. It's less confusion, less to interpret. But it also just looks cooler. It's also just something qualitatively different about the result of filling this in by hand. Like it is closer to like the illustration or the closer to the feel of like an old school illustration versus something digital. So I think the product has a little bit more, you know, life to it, I suppose, you know. Hmm. Once again, I have to give uh, credit where it's due um, to to Hardy for a lot of the inspiration behind these workflows. A lot of this stuff I've just kind of lifted from, you know, some of his work and his strategies. So, um, I mean, yeah. Cool. Um, hmm. Let's go back here. I just want to fix this. Maybe I won't dive into color just yet, but let's do some basic kind of presentational stuff. Let's do a little neat trick here. Give him a little shadow. Do the same here. This is not a scientifically accurate shadow, but it's good enough to fake it. Pretty quick and easy way to set that up. And then we can just let's do low opacity, just kind of fade that out. Let's do the same thing here. Let's flip it. Pretty cool. Just for the sake of presentation, let's center some of these things. I'm going to keep this little foot thing. This is an example of, you know, callouts that we would include in a concept sheet. There are probably a few more that I would include, but let's darken the background a little bit. And maybe we'll just do, for now, let's try this. Maybe just do kind of a simple gradient. Oh, actually, this could be kind of interesting. Oh wait, no, this will work. Let's just kind of do a quick and dirty value pass, putting some of our brightest points towards the kind of top right 3/4 position, and especially up towards the head and the torso. And just like simple block in. Just with like an airbrush. Low opacity. And would have mirrored the shadow as well. Yeah, I think if we're putting two things in the same scene, they might as well use the same light source. You know, I think that just sells the three-dimensional aspect of it more. In fact, probably gonna take some of the color out of this because our environment doesn't have color for now, at least. So I'm gonna set that below. Let's do a little saturation. Oh, forgot. Let's actually merge these shadows together. There we go. And then do saturation, drop them below. Maybe let's, and then with this, I think I'm just gonna go in. I'll just do it on a mask layer instead of erasing. Again, any opportunity for non-destructive workflow is probably a good opportunity to take. I'm just gonna paint in. I'm subtracting away from this layer to reveal these shadows and to a lesser degree spaces of ambient occlusion, mostly just shadows. This kind of helps, again, helps sell the three-dimensional forms, helps sell the shape. Doesn't have to be very precise. Probably do like a big one here. Show this claw. Like very rudimentary shading. Nothing crazy. Probably have a shadow cast by this antenna. Let's flip it. I'm gonna do the same thing over here. Make sure I get my shadow cast direction right. Something like that. I think maybe we need a bit more this white up here. Yep. And I'm actually going to fill some of this back in. Again, perks of non-destructive workflow. Anything we don't like, maybe we can kind of fill that back in. Now that we have these basic, actually, getting ahead of myself, seeing a little bit more that I want to have here. There we go. Now that we have these basic values set up, I'm going to duplicate this just so we have a backup. And maybe, I don't know, what if we just completely color balance this. Maybe it's too bright. Do image. Let's just reduce the value a little bit. And then color balance to something warm. Maybe we can darken our shadows a little bit. Let's keep going. Increase saturation. Oh yeah. Now he's really a lobster. Again, this is just like, this doesn't have to be it. You know, this doesn't have to be our end product necessarily, but let's flip. Actually, we could go. Oh, that's kind of interesting. Yeah, that's a little bit more fantasy, a little off-brand. I don't know. Did my Photoshop just crash? What's going on? I should save this. Holy shit. Lobster Man 02. Wow, I went almost 3 hours without saving. You guys, you got to help me out here. I mean, this is digital painting 101. I think it did crash this window, so I'm gonna have to reopen. I don't care what's new, Photoshop. It's never something that I need. All right, I think we might as well leave it here. Oh, let's try one more thing. Let's try one more thing. I'm gonna take this. I'm gonna duplicate this again. Put it over. So you have this white. Why is this doing this? Why are you doing this? There we go. Now we, that's good to hear. Okay, now we have this. I'm going to clear this mask. I'm going to create a new mask and invert it. And now let's go in. Let's do some very tiny highlights. Just a touch here and there to give him some sort of reflective crustacean-y look. You don't need that much. This might even be too much already, but you know, it just gives that extra little kick of sea creature. Gonna dial that back a little bit. And then maybe just to hmm. Let's just try one more thing. Let's do a little gradient. Let's put that over the sketch layer, under that one, just to help pull focus a little bit. What happens when we change our background color? It's an interesting thing to mess with. I think lighter is working better for us because this is kind of still more in the sketch side of things. You know, we're not fully committing to color. So I think a lighter background, maybe even a lighter. Yeah. All right. Well, I think I'm going to call it for now. Yeah, I think it's pretty much exactly where I wanted to be today. Oh my God. And yeah, I think we have enough. Might do some additional color exploration next time. You know, this is all very monochromatic. We probably want to spice it up a little bit. I tend to just prefer monochromatic color schemes anyway, so I don't know, we'll see. But yeah, I think we'll leave it here for today, and next time we'll dive into some 3D. And we'll go into ZBrush. We'll do some sculpting. We'll talk about some of that process, and yeah, thank you guys for sticking with me through this, and for jumping in and saying hello. Next time, don't let me forget to save. I'm gonna do that again right now. But yeah, appreciate y'all showing up and sharing your Sunday with me, and I'll keep you posted. I might do another stream this week, but definitely next Sunday, I'll set up another one. And I'll keep y'all posted. If you haven't joined the hop in the Discord group, there should be a link in the description. Or just subscribe to the channel if you want to get notifications about these streams. But yeah, I'm just gonna keep chipping away at this guy. So thanks everyone, and I will catch you next time.